How's everybody doing? I hope you are doing well. Sorry about the mix-up in the live stream. I tried to, long story short, I had to restart the live stream from my mobile phone, so I lost some of you guys who were waiting. But anyway, we are here. Hopefully you eventually see it. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about a macro update and so review what happened in the markets briefly, talk a bit about Bitcoin and where I think it's at right now. Then I'm going to share with you a new investment thesis that I've been thinking about. I haven't shared it before, so tune in for that. I'm really starting to get excited about it, and I think it has a lot of promise, so would be interested in your thoughts on it as well. And then finally, I'm just going to end with a personal take based on some observations that I have been making. So let's just get right into it. Now, a lot of you have been asking me about my stay in Turkey and how I like it here in Turkey, and in fact, my experience here has been quite good. I really have had none of the issues that some other people have been talking about. Alhamdulillah. I think it's partly due to just the location that I chose here in Turkey, which is a very sort of touristy location, and they're very accustomed to tourists here. And so yeah, it's been a positive experience. I have to say, here's a hack that you won't hear anywhere else on YouTube, and that's why you should value your subscription here. A hack here in Turkey is that if you have a baby, and it's a cute baby, and you meet a Turkish person, if they're frowning at the time, when they see your baby, that frown is going to turn upside down and it's going to turn into a smile. So the hack is, if you're coming to Turkey, bring a baby with you. Doesn't have to be your baby. It can be just any cute baby. Sometimes you'll find them in airports, sometimes in parks, but if you have a baby, it's a real advantage for you when you're going out here in Turkey, because they really like to, when they see a baby, they smile. So yeah, there you go. Now let's talk about the markets today. So in the last week, the NASDAQ was down a smidge, the S&P was down a smidge, the Dow was up a bit. Nothing really noteworthy, nothing to write home about. The inflation numbers came in mixed. So the CPI numbers were a bit cooler than what was expected, so lower than what was expected. That's a good thing for inflation. Inflation refers to the increase in prices over time. So you don't want prices to be increasing over time. So inflation was cooler than expected. That's good. Another measure of inflation, which is basically what wholesalers pay for their raw materials, that actually rose more than expected. So it was 0.3%. They expected it to be at 0.2%, and this is month over month. So the inflation data, there was good news and bad news there. There was, pockets of strength and pockets of weakness in the market. Notably, the NASDAQ has actually had 2 straight weeks of declines. The NASDAQ hasn't had 2 straight weeks of declines since December of last year. So it's not unusual for the NASDAQ to have 2 weeks of decline. It is unusual to not have them for 8-9 months. So that's what we experienced. Now, I should say, as it relates to Bitcoin, that we haven't really seen the same weakness in Bitcoin that we saw in the NASDAQ. And the NASDAQ, mind you, is composed primarily of technology stocks. So there does, and historically, Bitcoin has behaved a lot like technology stocks, going up when the NASDAQ goes up, going down when the NASDAQ goes down. So we may be seeing the start of a bit of a decoupling between the NASDAQ and Bitcoin. And perhaps investors are getting a bit wiser about Bitcoin and what it can provide, which is a security investment, almost like a hedge. It hasn't performed as a hedge, basically a way to reduce risk yet, but I think this is what it will evolve to. Basically, what you use gold for previously, you'll use Bitcoin for in the future. It's digital gold, basically. So I think Bitcoin is maturing into this role. With time, it's maturing into this role. So investors are less and less looking at it as sort of a high risk technology play, and more looking at it as digital gold, which is a good thing if you are a proponent of Bitcoin, because this has always been the use case. Or I shouldn't say always has been, but this has recently been the primary utility of Bitcoin that has been advertised, and it seems that, you know, increasingly it's playing this role. As it relates to Bitcoin, speaking of Bitcoin, so this is where I get creative with my segues. So Tesla owns Bitcoin, and so we talk about Bitcoin. So now let's talk about Tesla. That's the best segue I have. So for Tesla, it was down actually 6% this week, and it's been down more than 10% in the last month. Latest news from Tesla is that the CFO has actually left, probably for a different position, although we don't know. It's estimated that his net worth, Zachary Kirkhorn, his net worth is between 100 and 600 million. He's only 37 years old, so one would imagine he may have left just to take some time off. Obviously, working for Elon Musk is very demanding. He lasted at Tesla for 13 years, working for Musk, which is probably the equivalent of 100 years working for someone else. So, you know, given the amount of money that he has or is estimated to have, it's not all that surprising that he would leave at this point and perhaps seek a more sort of balanced or more work-life balance than perhaps he has at Tesla. A lot of people have read a lot of things into this. I don't really see much to be read here. I think he is replaceable. I don't think he's, you know, a key man in Tesla in terms of what provides the value, the secret sauce for Tesla. So I'm not really concerned about the future of the company. Eventually he will be replaced, and his replacement will do a good job. Not saying that his job was easy or wasn't demanding or wasn't essential, and or his, you know, contributions weren't great. I don't think he was part of sort of the secret sauce for Tesla that's not replaceable, and therefore I don't see any risk to the thesis behind Tesla that I hold. And the thesis behind Tesla is that a lot of, or actually the majority of transport will go electric with time. And this kind of brings me to my investment idea, which is that I think not just car transportation will turn electric, but the majority of our energy usage will be electric. This is becoming increasingly clear to me on account that, first of all, this is the trend that we are observing. Second of all, it seems like there's a lot of elements that point in this direction. Obviously, you have the environmental concerns of fossil fuels. So even beyond, you know, their usage in internal combustion engines or for cars, but they're used for generating power or any other use of energy that society has. So you have the environmental concerns, but also in terms of energy efficiency, electric engines are a lot more efficient. So for example, when you look at electric vehicles, they're typically around 85 to 90% efficient when it comes to converting electric energy from the battery to mechanical energy. You compare this with ICE vehicles, they're only about 15 to 30% efficient. So you have environmental concerns that would push people towards more electricity, and you have more efficient technology. So not only is it better for the environment, but it's more efficient. And then the third thing I would say is that technological advances are making electricity generation, storage, and consumption more easy and less costly. So you have basically a trifecta of really strong, compelling reasons for why the majority of society's energy usage would become electric. So, with that being said, I think it's safe to say that there's going to be a lot more demand for electricity in the future. Now, right now, just around a third of electricity, or in the United States, a third of energy that is consumed is electric. And I suspect that everything will become electric over time. Everything with exception to things like rockets. So there's probably going to be, if you have a third right now of energy consumption electric, and I suspect that this will become the vast majority in the future of energy consumption will be electric, then I think that there's at least a doubling, maybe even a tripling of demand for electricity that lies ahead of us. And therefore, the investment idea that I am pursuing is investing in the production and distribution of electricity. So I'm looking at different utility companies, especially as it relates to states or countries that have mandated a transition to electricity. So think of it this way: a lot of the money that is being spent on fossil fuels, right, or fuels, fuels that are referred to as fossil fuels, a lot of that money is going to be moved towards electricity. And we've seen, how many countries have become so rich behind their export of oil. And I think that wealth is going to be distributed basically amongst electricity producers. So I think this is a secular trend that's going to last for many years, and therefore I think it makes a lot of sense to add an electricity producer to one of our PIF portfolios. And I'm not sure if it's going to go into our growth portfolio or a dividend portfolio, but I know that I want to have sort of the best in breed electricity producer that I'm comfortable with from a halal perspective in one of our portfolios. That's for sure. And so that's the investment idea that I've had, and I'm sort of right now in the stage of investigating different candidates. Now for PIF, we have scheduled a new investment idea by the end of the month. So I suspect that by the end of the month, I will have my pick for the electricity producer. If not, I'll have a different pick, inshallah. So yeah, tune in for that. And the final thing I want to say is with regards to, now this is a personal take, and that is, today everything is amazing, right, today. And if you look at technology and the things that we can do, the fact that I'm able to sort of be this, go live, at an instant and speak with you and share my thoughts and, work from Turkey, and, I'm based out of the United States, and there's so much that we should say Alhamdulillah for. And I think that a lot of the things that we have right now, I mean, kings and sultans of the past wouldn't even dream of. They wouldn't even, this was something that was completely inaccessible to them. Having the ability to, work from wherever, and have in your pocket a phone that gives you access to all the information on earth, and be able to connect with people that you haven't connected with since high school, and in an instant you have all these options, you have all these amenities. You can have groceries delivered to your door in most parts of the world. You can press a button on your phone and have a cup of coffee delivered to you, and yet people are not that happy. And what I want to say is that I feel a lot of the reason for unhappiness is comparing oneself to other people. And another word, I guess, would be envy. And so if you're feeling envious towards anyone, I want you to do the following mental experiment to get rid of this envy. And that mental experiment is to say, would I replace everything in my life for what this other person has? And when I say everything, I mean everything. Your age, your iman, your faith, your family, your money, your knowledge, your memories, everything in your life. Replace it with whatever this other person has. Your health. I suspect that you'll always come across something where you'll say, you know what, this one I'm not willing to let go of. This particular aspect of my life, sorry, this particular person, this particular relationship, this particular experience, I'm not going to replace what I have for what this other person has. I suspect this is the case. And if this is the case for you when you do this mental experiment, then you should understand that what you've done is that you've admitted that all in all, the net result is that what you have is more valuable. You value what you have more than what this other person has, and therefore there's no reason for this envy. So this is a mental habit that I encourage everyone to try and get into the habit of, to feel better and to really feel the innumerable blessings that we all have in our life right now, and to appreciate them and feel happy and less stressed and more in the moment and more able to enjoy the blessings that we have. So that's what I have. Let's go to questions if there's any questions. Inshallah. So we do have a question about M-phase energy. The question you should ask about M-phase energy, well, it's been down, it's been brutal for M-phase energy in the last 12 months. Ask yourself, what about the thesis regarding Enphase Energy has changed? The price is what you pay, right? The value is what you get. Has the value gone up or has it gone down? And that's what you need to ask yourself. Price is basically market participants voting, but value is what you actually buy. So, what you actually get from your purchase. So I would encourage people to not focus on price and focus rather on value when they're evaluating different stocks. Because ultimately, over time, the price will catch up with the value. The price will reflect what the value is. And the difference between investors that do really well for themselves in the stock market and investors that don't is that investors that do well focus on what matters, which is value. Tawasaw bil haqq. That's what's going to make you successful when investing. All right, we'll go to the second question. Yasin, I haven't decided yet on which energy company I will share with PIF members by the end of the month, inshallah. Mutual funds, perhaps we'll go into a comparison of those. Investing in startups. Here's something that I will say about investing in startups, and that is you should, when you invest, kiss that money goodbye, because in all likelihood, and that's what's going to happen to your money. Now, sometimes, I'm not saying investing in startups is a bad idea necessarily, but sometimes you'll hit a home run and it'll pay for all your losses. But considering how rare those are, I would, when you invest, expect it not to return, and that way you don't have any disappointment. Be very wary of private equity companies that are boasting, oh, you know, we have 30% returns or 40% returns or whatever annually. Don't ask for, because that's their valuation of their returns, or some, you know, based on the most recent round or something like that. But none of the initial investors have gotten any money out of their investment, and maybe the only cash out option is, you know, when the company goes public or something else happens, and in a lot of cases they'll end up screwing over their investors and doing, you know, a reverse split or something like that, where it doesn't end up paying out well. So instead of focusing on the paper returns that these private equity companies advertise, focus on how much actual cash has returned to investors. What's the return measured that way? Because that's going to tell you the performance of that fund, as opposed to what they advertise it is. All right, final question regarding short selling. Why is short selling haram? The risk, first of all, you're selling something that you don't own, right? So the owners of the shares that you're shorting, or whatever it is that you're shorting, have not assigned you as a representative for them to sell on their behalf their holdings. So you're selling something that you borrowed from the owner, who is none the wiser about the fact that you borrowed them, and you don't know if they're okay with you borrowing it or not. And you're not paying the owner the proceeds of the sale, so you're not their representative, you're not taking a fee and then paying the owner. So you're selling something you borrowed, which is an insane concept if you think about it. In no other scenario are you allowed to sell something you borrowed. And so, yeah, there you have it. That's the short answer. Selling something that you borrowed is insane. It shouldn't happen, and in fact, it's short selling was banned for the longest time. And then you get all these philosophers that come out, oh, price discovery. Let's do, you know, we need to add short selling in order to enable price discovery in the market, as if, you know, markets haven't functioned for thousands of years without short selling, and price discovery was perfectly spot on. Yeah, prices can be discovered without short selling. It's completely useless, valueless activity that causes a lot of mayhem in the markets. And typically, whenever there's a scenario of like extreme panic in the markets, short selling will actually get banned because it's a crazy thing to do that increases risks in the market with no value added. So that's what happened in 2008, 2009. The financial companies, investors were banned from shorting them. So yeah, stay away from short selling. It's completely haram to do. Don't bet on people's demise, by the way. Don't bring people down. If someone is, just as a concept, if someone is going through a tough time, your job is not to, as a Muslim, as a halal conscious investor, your job is not to pull them down even further. If we take the technical aspect of it, put that aside. As a halal conscious investor, you're trying to, kick someone when they're down, and that's exactly what short selling does. It creates artificial supply for a particular company's shares, which makes it seem even less in demand than it actually is, which brings down its price, which makes the company harder and harder to sustain itself. So just as a sort of the spirit of it is even at odds with halal conscious investing. So I would stay away from it fully. I've never short sold in my life. All right, hopefully that was useful. Thank you all for tuning in. I love it that you do. And thank you for your comments. And until next time, take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum, and peace be upon you all.